what do you have there in front of you and you're going to tell us about today?
Okay, so what I have here is this is a project that I started very recently after talking with and meeting all the guys from Battle Arms Development. Just to pay a quick homage to them. This lower right here is actually a Battle Arms Development workhorse. I built the PDW or the pistol off of that, mostly because the idea came from them. So when I met them recently, opening a business that I actually currently work for now, I won't throw their name out there unless I get permission. But when I met them recently, they had a slew of guns that were there that were pretty impressive. It showed that they first of all, they were unbelievable guys. They were great guys, and they were ingenious. They had no problem sharing their knowledge with us and kind of showing different people throughout the industry some of the things they've been working on. One of which I'll do a quick shout out to, was their OIP rifle, the ounces is pounds rifle. That thing was unbelievable, but we can go into more detail on that later, probably after I buy one. But one of the rifles that they had there, which was actually a PDW, was a rifle. It was set up with collapsible stock, actually a PDW type stock, and it was an SBR. Had an Athena, a primary arms Athena, I believe another 4 to 16 or maybe a little bit bigger scope on it. And the package was this big. When I looked at it and I saw it and I really started inquiring about it, I said, that's kind of a big scope for something so small. And they said that's a 1,000-yard PDW. It was chambered in 6mm arc, and that's where I decided to go ahead with this project. They on their way out after meeting them, they asked me if when theirs was ready for production and to be distributed, if I wanted my name on the list to get one, and I said yes, which I will get one when it comes out. But in my impatience too, I decided to do my own take on it while I had time. So I built it off this Battle Arms workhorse lower, full grip and everything, and I put an SB tactical brace on the back. That way I didn't have to deal with doing any forms on it or actually making an SBR. I figured it would be just as it would accomplish all the same goals, making it a pistol. The only difference is not having a collapsible PDW type brace on it. Everything else is built by Blackout Defense and Faxon. Faxon, I grabbed the 6.5 6.5 Grendel bolt carrier, and that works with 6mm arc. 6mm arc and 6.5 are very similar. The 6mm arc is just a neck down 6.5 Grendel. The barrels of Faxon as well. The whole thing all came together as one piece. And then the rest of the upper is made by Blackout Defense. Blackout Defense was a great company to work with as well. When I was first putting the upper together, I ran into a little bit of an issue with their barrel nut. And it was actually probably my own issue. It was something that I had done wrong. But after talking to them and with some of their guidance, I called their customer service, asked them a question, and they put me in touch with their one of their lead engineers, a gentleman named Tom, and he was great. Tom actually, they took my feedback from using their spanner wrench and everything to tighten down the barrel nut, and they actually altered their barrel nut design, putting recesses in where the holes would go for the spanner wrench, and that was very impressive to me to have a company that actually goes ahead and listens to the feedback you have. To be honest, it was actually pretty simple to set up. There wasn't too much that I really needed to do once I had the picture inside of my head, like most of the guns I build. But once it all started to come together, I had to think about which scope I was going to use, and I just pulled the scope off one of my other rifles, and it was a primary arms 4 to 16 by 44. By no means not my highest end scope, but primary arms has really stepped up their game lately, so it was kind of perfect to add to this kit while I was building such an experimental gun. When I asked Battle Arms Development why they built that type of PDW that looked like it was there to reach out to some distance, they said that's a 1,000-yard PDW, and that kind of blew my mind. So often now we're trying to take designated marksman teams and sniper teams, if you will, and get them more compact packages or easier packages to use. And you see all these chassis out there with collapsible stocks and shorter barrels, or barrels that are bedded so low and made to a certain length so that suppressors can be added. There's so much technology that goes into designated marksman work and to sniper work that I thought that, hey, why wouldn't you make a PDW AR platform in a round that can really reach out there? From everything that they told me, and I 100% believe it because they showed me the chronograph evidence on their phones. The length of this barrel, which is about 11.5 inches, does not drastically reduce at all. Maybe 100 feet per second, it reduces the velocity of the round. Moving it all the way up to 16 inches also doesn't seem to increase it that much. Like I said, 100 feet per second is nothing, especially when you can compact your package to this. This can fit in a ruck. This can fit in a duffel bag. You could put this in, for covert teams, they could put this in a tennis bag or a baseball bat bag, and nobody would think twice about it. The way it's set up right now is actually really comfortable for me, for the way I shoot, using mostly AR platforms for a number of years. I did go for, as far as my muzzle device was concerned, I decided to use a Surefire War Comp. The reason I did was because I really did have a feeling that I was going to have to really move that gas because of how short the barrel is, and I was right. It also has a drastic reduction in recoil, and there's really not that much recoil with 6mm arc, but enough can affect accuracy. So far in testing it, once I got everything working, I was shooting about 1/4 inch groups. At a very short distance. I think I was only going 25 yards at the range that I work at, but it was enjoyable to shoot, and I knew that a lot more accuracy was going to be able to be obtained by it. Some of the problems that I ran into, first of all, finding a way to mount a scope this big. I did have to use a riser, and I just used one of the risers I had around. I had a Yankee Hill laying around, so I just grabbed the rings I had, the scope I had, and the riser I had, and I just decided to kind of go for broke. Obviously, this will all be changed very soon, and I'll probably upgrade the scope a lot, and then, of course, put it in some sort of a cantilever mount. The other issues I did run into were magazines. Just so everybody can see in video land and YouTube land, weapon is clear. Magazine is loaded, but it's going over there. The magazines, if I had a magazine that was of a traditional 6.5 Grendel type, which looked more like a standard 5.56 magazine, some of them, their followers, I'm going to use the magazine again, unload these. The followers themselves proved to be an issue, and the reason for that was that they, if the follower didn't have a lot of spring tension on it, it had to have some pretty stout spring tension, and didn't have some sort of almost anti-tilt to it. When I would put the magazine in the rifle and I would go to close the bolt, and if the 6mm arc round is so long and has, it's kind of got a weird angle that it actually goes into the feed ramp, it would actually dip when being pushed by the bolt, and it would hit just below the feed ramp. One, destroying the tip of the round, and two, not allowing it to feed. And no matter how many times I took that charging handle and I smashed it back and forth, I was hoping that maybe some polishing would do the work or something like that. Nope, it was that magazine. That dip right in the front would just stop it cold. The magazines I actually found with and have dedicated to this pistol are the Durmag magazines, amazingly enough. They're actually pretty well built, and their weird shape, this kind of almost banana shape, allows me to differentiate these from my 6.5 Grendel magazines, from my 6.8 magazines, from my 5.56 magazines, and my 300 Blackout magazines. And I have this, as far as putting these in my gear, it is almost a given that these are the only ones I'll use for 6 arc, and that way they're easy for me to tell apart from the other ones, and they work so well with this 6 arc platform that I'm going to dedicate all these Durmag magazines to it. Other than that, I haven't had any other issues. There was that one feeding issue, and that was magazine related, and everything else runs like clockwork. I've had no problems with the pistol whatsoever. every single round failed without issue. Ejection was perfect. The round itself, like I said, is extremely accurate. Ammunition still a little bit hard to find because it's only a Hornady round, but the Hornady rounds, hopefully, at some point in the future, they'll open them up to other manufacturers, possibly Federal or whoever else wants to pick it up. But the round itself is great. Once Hornady does open it up, I think ammunition will be a little bit easier to find. But if you're interested in doing a platform like this, you just have to know you're going to have to hoard information or hoard ammunition and information, and know that that what you use is going to have to be specifically for that platform.